The FedProfits Association presents Thrive in the Recession through the power of no-bid contracts. And now, here's your host, Mr. Supercharged Profits himself, Ron Imbach.
Hello, and I want to welcome you again to another episode of our show, Thrive in a Recession through the power of no-bid contracts. I'm Ron Imbach. I'm your host, and I'll go by the name that I love to be known by, Mr. Supercharged Profits. Can you have a better title than that? I love that. So I want to welcome everyone again. I hope you've enjoyed the programs we've had so far. I think they've been really good. It's very informative about federal contracting. And I'm excited about my guest today because actually I've only known my guest about 2 weeks. Is that right, Geoff?
That's right.
Yeah, we just met about 2 weeks ago. And right when I met him, interesting guy, very personable guy. And I said, well, what do you do? And when he told me what he does, I went, wow, that's very helpful for businesses overall, but it's especially helpful with the federal government and looking good when you're trying to get federal contracts, because obviously there's competition as well. You want to be as impressive as you can be, both with your federal experience, both with your expertise, as well as from a credit perspective. And that's what Geoff works on. Just to introduce Geoff quickly, his name is Geoff Suval. And I'm impressed by the fact that Geoff told me I pronounced that correctly. So I'm very impressed with myself getting that right. He's an executive vice president for J.Galt. Okay. And I believe they're a national, or maybe even an international company. And anyway, I'm very glad to have you here today. Geoff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ron. Thank you so much for having me today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, we met at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I have to admit, Geoff, we couldn't have ordered a better day for the event that we had. We had like a little networking event for a big government contracting conference we were attending a few weeks ago, and it was about 70, 75, not a cloud in the sky, rooftop setting in downtown Washington with the Capitol and the monument and everything else in the background. So it was really, really cool. And I found that Geoff, in addition to just being a good guy and a cool guy, he's almost a neighbor. He lives right down the street, or right down, not too far away, in Baltimore, Maryland. He's very comfortable, knows Washington, D.C. real well also, and gets down there. So Geoff, it's really, really happy having you here today and as our guest to really talk to our audience about something really, really important, credit, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Ron. I'm thrilled to be here, share some great information, hopefully with your audience, information that frankly any business can benefit from. But as you had indicated before, it can be especially helpful for businesses trying to win government contracts in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just in general, can you just kind of talk a little bit about, because I think everyone, or most people, especially in business, you're going to know, well, I need to have good credit. But I think a lot of people, and that's the thing that really intrigued me when you and I met and started talking, the difference between personal credit and business credit. Okay.
Yeah.
And how you help businesses kind of make that transition from just everything being about them personally, okay, and their personal credit, to being about business credit. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Love to. If I may, I'd like to take just a quick step back and talk a little bit about personal credit, and then we'll talk about business credit. But personal credit, we all have a fairly good idea about how it works. It's predicated on 5 different things in different weighted percentages. The FICO score range is 350 to 850, even 900 actually, with some FICO scales. It begins building passively at age 18. And in general, the more you use, the lower your FICO score goes. Business credit's entirely different. Business credit, the scale is 0 to 100. Okay? And it doesn't build passively. You have to build it intentionally. And it's predicated primarily on one thing. And that one thing is your payment history. But it gets more complicated than this, because of all of the thousands and thousands of companies that extend credit or make loans, only 7% report to the business credit bureaus, report your timely payments, your good behavior to the business credit bureaus. So to build real business credit, corporate credit on your EIN number, you need to know who reports and make sure that you're doing business and buying things from those lenders and vendors and issuers of credit that report your good payment history. So you're able to demonstrate your ability to pay your bills on time, and it's reflected on the business credit bureaus.
That's fascinating. I mean, I did not know that. You know what I find kind of amusing, though, when you mention that the scale is actually 100 or 0 to 100.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have an 85, 90 and be, and that would be a great score. But if you told anyone else, like, yeah, I got an 85, 90 on my credit score, they go, oh my, does it go that low?
Yeah. Well, actually, you raised another really good point there, Ron, because, actually with Equifax, there is a different scale, but we use math to sort of get it back to the same scale that Dun & Bradstreet and Experian use. So it's 0 to 100 still. But you can actually have a business credit score of 85 and still not have access to the money that could be really beneficial for your business. And you might still have to personally guarantee it. So it's a combination of your score, but also being at the highest vendor tier. So there are, in addition to your score, there's also 4 different vendor tiers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you need to be at that business credit score of 80 and above at that tier 4. And that's where the magic really happens. So you can actually be an 85 and still only have access to a little bit of EIN, credit and capital. But if you get to tier 4 with the business credit score of 80 and above, that's when the world really opens up to you and you get access to larger amounts of credit and capital entirely tied to your EIN, no longer having to personally guarantee it.
Great. And I think, that's obviously a goal because, we're going to get into how this helps with, just overall business federal contracting. Do you help individuals with their credit as well? Or do you just help, okay, let's build up your business credit score so you can look better from a business perspective? Do you do both, or do you just focus on the business aspect of that?
That's an incredibly timely question because we are rolling out as part of our service now. We've always focused on building your corporate credit profile, right? Which is EIN credit and getting you access to what you need when you need it, no more personal guarantees. However, what we were finding with all of our members, and we have well in excess of 45,000 members all over the country in different industries, you name it. But many of them were more difficult to help because to get started with our process, it's still accessing business funding. And to get access to business funding, that still does rely on your personal credit and your personal FICO score. And so many business owners, and candidly myself included, when I had my own business, I had a successful small business, but my successful small business did a pretty good number on my FICO score. And I didn't understand how it worked. And so many of these successful small businesses these owners have dinged up their personal credit to the point where they're having a hard time even getting business funding at lower levels because of that. And so we are, as part of our service, launching pretty cool 2 different options. One is essentially a do it, yourself model using AI, where we'll have a simulator where they can, basically say, well, if I pay this off, or if I do this or get this removed, what will this do to my score? And you'll see how your score will improve, so that we'll be able to tell you what you'll have access to. Or we'll have a second option, which will be more of a do it for them or with them option using our attorneys, where we'll be able to challenge things on their personal credit report to improve their score, so that they'll now have access to larger amounts of business financing. So heretofore, it's been just corporate credit, EIN, and now we're going to help with the personal credit too, which should accelerate them in their journey to getting real business credit or corporate credit.
Wow. Well, I promise the audience, I did not coordinate that handoff to Geoff right there.
Yeah.
I did not coordinate that. It just seemed like a logical question. It worked out. So that's good. That's good when they work out like that. Now, let me ask you, what type, you kind of have mentioned a little bit some of the things you do. Like, you said now you're going to have 2 programs, for clients that got kind of a, do it yourself and then a we'll do it for you or do it for you kind of program. Can you get into a little bit more talking about that? So, because I think, credit is one of those things, I think everyone knows a little bit about it, but very few people know a whole lot about it, know enough about it. So could you share that, exactly how you do that?
Well, so I mean, at our core, we're a software company with a pretty good history, about a 16-year history, but it had always been a very self-service type software program that business owners could buy and work themselves through the steps. And it was effective, but, candidly, some business owners would get distracted and lose steam, and they didn't always get themselves through the process. So, our CEO, who's a very visionary guy, actually, acquired the software a couple of years ago and basically added a much higher level of engagement. So now we like to call what we do our white glove service. So all of our members, which we call our clients, are now assigned a team of finance and credit analysts that now pull them through our very intentional 7-step process using our software. And what that software allows, once they've gone through our 7-step process, is it allows these business owners to separate and keep separate their personal credit and their business credit, and get access to the credit and the capital, the money that they need for their business at better rates, better terms, without having to give personal guarantees anymore.
And that's absolutely, I talked to, I mean, I've never worked in banking, but I've worked with banks for years and years and years and years. It's all about risk. It's all about risk. I mean, one of the things that we tell small businesses about federal contracts is that the federal government is going to pay you. All right. There's not, they're not going to go bankrupt. They print money and they collect taxes. So they're not going to go bankrupt. Right. So, and the great thing about that is that when you apply for a loan with most lending institutions, and I've talked to a number of lenders about this, if you've got a federal contract in place, signed, sealed, delivered, you're going to have it. The lender knows that you're going to get paid. So guess what the lender doesn't have to do? They don't have to scrutinize you quite as diligently as they normally do. Okay. And we found that from a number. I just had a lender tell me just a couple of weeks ago. He said, I won't even look at the tax returns. If I know they've got a federal contract in place, I know they're going to get paid. So I know it is less likely, so it reduces their risk, that they're not going to pay me because they're getting paid. Even with commercial businesses, kind of the same thing. I mean, because, if we happen to hit a bad recession across the board, I mean, and even big businesses go out of business, bigger businesses go out of business. So it's entirely possible that they're going to have a problem paying. And if they have a problem paying and your lender that's borrowed money from you, then they're probably going to have a problem paying the bank back. Is that something you've heard of, or do you see that very much in what you do?
So the banks on our platform, they're willing to underwrite using different criteria than the banks that you're probably talking about, right? Mm-hmm. The banks, these traditional, and we have traditional banks on our platform too, but they're willing to underwrite in less traditional, not about revenue and your profit and loss statements or 3 to 5 years of financials, right? The companies on our platform are willing to underwrite their risk based upon the company's demonstrated ability to pay their bills on time and as agreed, and have it reflected by the business credit bureaus. And so that does change the risk a little bit for these lenders, because again, they're now not looking at some things as deeply as some of the other banks are, right? They're just willing to underwrite based on demonstrated fiscal responsibility, and there has to be hope there that that's going to continue. So there is risk, no question about it. So in that case, maybe they will require some of the no longer personal collateral, but if the business has assets, like if the business owns buildings, if the business has equipment, real estate, they might ask for some collateral there to at least collateralize and reduce their own risk a little bit. But no longer will the business owners that we work with that have gone through our program have to pledge their house or their kids' college fund or their other personal assets.
And how common is that? I've heard that many, many, many times from small business owners that they've had to put their house up. And obviously that's stressful. That is incredibly stressful. So your service eliminating that, that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Let me ask you just a couple of other things. It was fascinating as you were talking there, and I hadn't thought about this, but the way you refer to clients as members, we're an association, so we have members as well. Guess how many steps our process is to getting federal contracts?
7.
7, exactly. So that's just a little side note, but I found that fascinating as you were talking about your program. So there must be something magic about that lucky number.
I'll tell
7.
you.
I don't know. So anyway, well, let me ask you, why is this, if someone in our audience is listening to the show today, why is this incredibly important? I mean, we've talked about it more a higher level, and we just mentioned a very important reason why it's important. Okay, you don't have to put your house up as collateral. But why does the federal government look at, someone applying for, they've got 20 people that have submitted a bid on a federal contract. Why does the federal government look at that and say, well, if they're stronger from an EIN perspective on their credit, we think they're less risk. We're more than willing, or we're more likely to give them the contract and award it to them than we are someone else. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, they do look at it. It's just like, if you don't think they're looking at our credit when we're, applying for anything, then we're sort of delusional. So they are looking at it. And, the government does like to see it because, frankly, it shows that these contractors or these companies, they manage their business well and are financially and fiscally responsible. I mean, it demonstrates that they're a good risk and will be a good partner or potential vendor for the government. So they like that. It gives them some additional assurance, and it puts them a little bit higher up in the eyes of the folks that are awarding these contracts. And it goes the same when you're just being brought in as a sub, for a prime. Like the primes are looking at it too, because they want to know that they're working with strong partners. So, and there's lots of other reasons, Ron, for having a strong business credit profile and score. I mean, it just gives you options. Having options to get access to the money that you need when you need it, without having to risk, your home and your other assets is critical. But then there's other, aside from those obvious, being able to access the capital, right, which is critically important to grow, scale, or frankly survive a storm. It gets you better rates and better terms. When you're a company with a strong business credit profile, you're going to get better terms from your suppliers and your vendors, right? You can expect in many cases to pay lower insurance premiums. Certainly if your company owns your automobiles, it's the same thing when, we apply for automobile insurance and they're looking at our personal FICO scores, right? Like if we have better credit, we get better rates. It's just the way that it works. It's the same thing with, your business credit profile and score. You get better rates, lower workers' comp costs. So, and for those companies that might be interested in figuring out what that next step is, like these business owners, these contractors that are looking for their exit at some point, and many of them are, right? They're thinking ahead. Having a strong business credit profile with access to working capital that's not tethered to any individual, that's literally attached to the EIN, in a stock sale goes with that company. So a buyer will be more interested in acquiring a company with a strong business credit profile and access to that working capital. It just makes the business more valuable so that they can continue to
absolutely.
execute. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite frankly, I appreciate you bringing that up. And then what you mentioned about workers' comp, insurance, all those other benefits are incredible for businesses just by having good credit. Geoff, if anyone in our audience and anyone listening to the show would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is probably via email. And that would just be Suval at J.Galt, that's JGALT.io. One of those fancy technology.
Oh, so, I know. That's got a nice ring to it.
J.Galt.io. Yes. Yeah. And I return all emails. So that would be great.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you again. You've been a great guest. I knew it would be a really interesting discussion. I knew it would be helpful for our audience to hear this from you. I try to, every week try to have someone on that can help specifically, help the audience specifically for federal contracts. Obviously, that's kind of what our theme is, okay, thrive in a recession. But in addition to that, you had a lot of great information just for business in general, okay, how good credit and how business credit can help them out in so many ways. So thank you, Geoff. I appreciate this. And, and again, you're a fun, cool guy as well. So I'm really glad you made it as a guest today.
Thanks, Ron. I feel the exact same way about you. And I really appreciate you having me on to talk to your audience. It was great.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Any information about me, about the program, about what we do in the association to assist our members, you can find out. There's a QR code that's going to be up on the screen. Check that out for all the information you need on that. And now I want to thank you again, and I will look forward to seeing you next time on Thrive in a Recession through the power of no bid contracts. I'm Ron Imbach. Take care and have a great week.
Thank you for joining us on the Thrive in the Recession through the power of no bid contract show. If you want more information on no bid contracts, visit us at www.FedProfits.com. We hope that you will join Ron Imbach, Mr. Supercharged Profits, next time as we continue to explore how no bid federal contracts can seriously grow your business. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts or visit the FedProfits YouTube channel. Until next time, have a prosperous week.